I've long been curious about the future of organic lawn care. Even if you're not too terribly concerned about being part of organic lawn care, you do have to consider, where is everything moving? What trends do we need to be paying attention to within our own business, that if we miss those trends, we might find ourselves in a bad position long term. And so organic lawn care, in my opinion, might, and that's the point of this video, offer an opportunity to both continue the margins, profit margins that we now have, as well as hopefully grow margins. And on top of that, might organic lawn care put us in a defensive position so that as our U.S. market or markets around the country and around the world, as we change and move more towards organic products, more and more away from chemicals, we're in a position as companies to capitalize on that, and we're already set up to capitalize on that. So I ask Tom Kelly of BeeSafe some questions about the future of organics and if it's just a defensive play or if there's more profit to be made by transitioning to an organic program.
From somebody that's listening to this and they're not sure about organics, is this something that is financially lucrative for them? And I'll bring this up a little bit more later, but is this something that can really add profit to their business from what you've seen and what you've learned in the companies you're working with, or is this more of just a defensive maneuver for a company?
Yeah, no, that's sort of a loaded question because I could talk about that for an hour, but
yep.
It depends on how you want to look at it. It absolutely is a lucrative option to add to your business. Most companies add it as an option. You know, a lot of lawn care service companies don't abandon their typical program. Immediately they'll offer the organic program. But even in your grocery store, the organic tomato is going to cost 30-40% more than the regular tomato. So people expect to pay more
right
for organic. So that, just generally speaking, as an overall theme, is very true. You can expect to charge more for it. It really appeals to a more wealthy client base too. People who have money to spend are much more happy to spend it on something that makes them feel good about the way they're treating the environment and their own property. So, to answer your question directly, it absolutely is it's a profit center for sure. You can really do well by adding an effective organic program, no doubt.
So just to clarify, so my transactional value will go up, being that I can potentially charge more because it has a higher perceived value and so on and so forth. But are you also saying that you're finding that your net margin on it can increase a bit as well? Like, for example, the product cost doesn't completely offset all of the increase that I can charge possibly in price. Is that true?
Yeah, actually, that's where sort of the trick is. First generation organics, where you're just applying, say, multiple granular applications of organic fertilizers, your product cost is going to be crazy. It's too expensive. It's not something that you can implement and charge enough to be profitable. So some of the newer technology, and I won't go off on that tangent right now without answering your question, but allows your product costs to go way down. So the general scenario or the general formula that I usually throw out there is that your product costs, if you do it the right way, are going to be, in the neighborhood of 10, 15, 20% more. But if you can charge 15, 20, 25% more,
right,
not only, so your transactional fee goes up, but your margin goes up too. Because
right,
even though you're paying a little bit more for product, you're actually charging more than that. So you're absolutely right. Your net margin increases just by the nature of the formula.
Right. Are you finding that, are you able to hold labor cost at about the same, or does labor cost go up a little bit as well?
No, the labor costs are identical. There's no difference in terms of, say there's two trucks on the road, one's doing an organic program, one's doing a chemical program. It's the same truck, it's the same employee. The fixed costs associated with that are steady. They don't change.
See, from a business owner standpoint, that's a big deal. I'd much rather spend more money on product costs than I would labor. The last thing I want to do is have to add more employees. But if I've got a cost go up anywhere, I'd rather be it on my product cost side anyhow. So That to me is a positive. And that had always been one of my perceptions, is that my labor cost was going to go sky high and my callbacks were going to go sky high if I switched over to an organic program. So you're saying that's not what you're seeing when it's done right. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of labor, I mean that's legitimate. There is no change. It's not something where you have to pay somebody more to do an organic program or bring on more employees or have 3 people on a crew to do something. It's if you do it right, it literally is the same exact formula from a labor and even equipment standpoint.
So in terms of, and I think we talked about that in the past, but just to clarify, I think what you just alluded to. So my same spray tanks, my same spreaders, all of that. Do I keep it? Would I have to change anything?
No, it's the same stuff. And sometimes there's a misconception that when you're using an organic product or a biologically active product, you need to change up your equipment, and that's absolutely not true. The equipment is literally interchangeable. It's the same equipment you use for one, you can use for the other.
That's a big deal. What about training? So if you take your technicians you have now, or so if I took mine or another company, they take theirs, any challenges training them or retraining them? How big of a deal is that?
Yeah, that's a good question too, because sometimes, in our want to overcomplicate things, and sometimes we do that in the lawn care business. We like to make things complicated.
Yep.
We don't always have to be.
I agree.
You're gonna have the same set of problems. It's not a different set of problems or a new set of problems. When a customer calls to complain that they've got weeds, it doesn't change when you offer an organic program. The customer remains the same. Perhaps there's a little bit more leeway and the customer is a little bit more understanding, but overall, the challenges from a customer service standpoint remain exactly the same. So in terms of training, you really always want your technicians to be knowledgeable to begin with, and one of my goals over the years is to kind of elevate the perception of the employee in our industry as being an intelligent, thoughtful professional. And again, whether you're out there pushing chemical fertilizer or spraying organic fertilizer, your customers are going to ask the same questions in terms of cultural practices and how to care for turf. I would say that there is a little bit more training in terms, or I'd always like to see a company train a little bit more aggressively with the understanding of soil biology and just general agronomics. But it's different. It's a different approach. It's a little bit more complicated, when we start talking about strains of bacteria and fungi and those kind of things, as opposed to just, NP and K. It's a little bit advanced, but I guess to answer your initial question, it's not something that you have to send somebody to Cornell for 2 years to get a degree to do.
Well, it wouldn't scare me off anyway, because I think in this industry, like you said, most guys overcomplicate it, but the one massive difference maker is service and educating the client and being knowledgeable. So I think any dollar invested in building up your team and teaching them at a higher level than your competitors only makes you better anyhow. So I see that as a positive anyway.
Yeah, you're so right with that. Anytime you can find a way to make your employees more articulate with what you're doing in terms of service and customer service and everything else, it's only going to benefit your entire company. So it's probably a good thing if we go and say, hey, you need to be a little smarter, a little bit more trained to do this. It's definitely going to benefit your entire business.
Right.